film business feels it's adapting too slowly to the modern world, but on the other, it is changing dramatically. The studio with the most nominations this year isn't Disney or Fox or Sony, it's the new kid on the block, Netflix, which has 23, including 5 for Marriage Story, which is about the breakup of a white, middle-class family. Will Gompertz, BBC News.
Well, with us now is the writer, actor and director Andrew Rajan. Welcome to you. And we're also joined by Susanna White, who is chair of Directors UK Film Committee and is a BAFTA award-winning director in her own right. And Susanna, if I might come to you first of all, as I say, you are a BAFTA member. How embarrassing is this row?
It's not embarrassing, but it's surprising because I think having campaigned fiercely for more diversity in the directing community for about 10 years, I'm actually starting to see a lot of women break through now and be given opportunities by the studios on big budget films, as well as from people like the BFI and more micro budget films. I think what's upsetting is these films that have been given recognition, which is, I think we need to scrutinise the voting process of BAFTA. It's a very democratic process, and I'd like to know exactly what the breakdown of the BAFTA membership is, because if you look at the subject matter of those films which are up there for Best Film, there are very few strong women or people of colour in those films. They're very, very traditional male films. Great films though they are, they're all outstanding films by outstanding directors, but I'm very sad not to see nominations for people like Greta Gerwig or Joanna Hogg, who've made outstanding films this year.
OK, well, we'll pick up on some of those points with you in a minute, but before we do, I'd like to turn to you, Andrew. Susanna says she was surprised when she saw the nominations. Were you?
No.
Right. Why not?
I'd say that just because BAFTA is BAFTA, it's financed by the studios, it's run by people in the industry, so it's not a surprise. It's disheartening, but it's not a surprise. I mean, I think for me, the problem is just far deeper than just looking at what's nominated this year. For me, it's about what gets financed, what doesn't get financed, the fact that there isn't really a really solid, deep platform of people of colour as directors, as writers, as producers being backed to do the projects that they want to make.
OK, again, we'll come back to that. But Susanna, would you agree with that ultimately BAFTA is a very conservative organisation, and that actually, I suppose you could argue at the end of the day, it's an award ceremony, isn't it? It's a promotional event, and the problems lie far deeper than that.
I mean, it's certainly conservative as these choices show. I disagree to a degree, and I think there have been some fabulous films this year which again have been overlooked, like Chiwetel Ejiofor's The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which did get financed. I think BBC Films, for example, are financing much more diversity in their choices. But yeah, I think it's a very democratic organisation in terms of its membership, BAFTA. It isn't done by jury. Every member gets a vote. And as I say, it's who those members are. And the American Academy has worked very hard getting a more reflective membership, getting lots more diversity in its membership, and maybe BAFTA needs to be thinking about doing something like that.
Andrew, I'm assuming that you would agree with that, but I'm sort of sensing that you think that this goes a lot deeper than that. Tell me a little bit more about perhaps your experience and what you've come up against.
I trained as an actor. I trained at the Guildhall, so with people like Ewan McGregor, Joseph Fiennes, Daniel Craig, they were all around my time. And then leaving the Guildhall, I wasn't going to work until there was a very Asian part requiring an Asian accent. And that surprised me. I don't have a trouble with the language, I wanted to do Shakespeare.
So the problem wasn't at drama school then?
No, by no means.
That's interesting.
But the industry was very clear about what they would and would not employ me as, and that got very tiring very quickly. So I started to decide that I needed to create work. I needed to start writing and directing if I was going to have a future, if you like. And so that's what I did, and that was an incredibly difficult thing to do. I raised the money entirely privately, and since I've done that, I then went to film school, to the National Film and Television School, which was a great training as well. But again, coming out of there, although I've got a wonderful crew who are all ready and waiting for me, trying to get finance in this country I've found has been a true sticking point.
And what do you get told when you're looking for finance?
Well, you don't get told, you just get told no. You don't get told any reasons, they don't have to, and why should they? But what I found is by going to America that people are far more friendly, there's a much more can-do attitude, there doesn't feel to be a glass ceiling, there doesn't, you know, in this country, can you name me 10 famous British Asian actors? No. Why? When you can name 10 black famous actors. You can name them because of America. Any black actors have found that the situation is untenable. They've gone to America, the Idris Elbas, the David Oyelowo's, they've gone to America, they've done wonderful work, and then America's handed them back, and Britain has welcomed them with open arms. But it's like they were talented when they left.
Yeah.
So why are we doing that? What's going on?
So Susanna, can you offer any thoughts or insights into what might need to change?
Well, as I said, I think we should scrutinise the voting system, maybe think of having a more representative jury system.
But I'm talking more, sorry to interrupt you only because we haven't got much time, I'm talking more about how more films are made that are more representative of the culture and by Asian directors and filmmakers, for example, like Andrew.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've been calling for much more diversity in the commissioning process generally. I'm at Directors UK, which I'm very involved in. We've been urging a much fairer representation, both racially and in terms of gender, to combat all this subconscious bias which clearly goes on. And I'm not saying by any means that we've won the battle. I'm just saying things have improved a bit, and these awards aren't reflecting actually that small shift in a change towards equality. I'm not saying we're there by a long shot, but I think things have got slightly better.
Okay, Susanna White. Yeah, no, thank you. Susanna White, thank you so much, and Andrew Rajan. Never enough time, but really good to hear both of your thoughts. Thanks again. Now, a plant-based pork substitute has been launched